Hello everyone, my name is Naomi. Welcome back to my channel. One of the things that I try to avoid talking about in all of this mess is COVID-19. I know it's out there, I know it exists, and I'm not a medical professional and I'm not an expert in any way. So it's not something that I have ever felt that I am qualified to talk about. And we have people on both sides who are in denial that it exists, and you've got people who it's their worst fear. I know people in both camps. I've always chosen kind of the middle road. Hey, yeah, it exists, but it's not something I'm going to fear. It's not something I'm going to get worked up about. I'm going to live my life, not live in fear, and I'm going to take care of the things I need to take care of. My family, my dogs, my house, my job. I'm going to do what I have to do. Now, that being said, COVID-19 very, very much exists. It definitely does. And one of my concerns has been, well, I have a couple of concerns. My mom and her husband, they live out in Colorado, far, far away from us. My mother-in-law and her husband, they also live in Colorado, far, far away from us. So we've had a lot going on with family stuff that's far, far away. My mother-in-law has been undergoing chemo for breast cancer. She had a double mastectomy back on May 1st, and we were really worried about whether or not she would, because of this pandemic, would she be able to have her surgery? Would she be able to go through treatment? And then there's also the concern of, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and people with immune systems that are compromised are less likely to survive this. And someone who is on chemo doesn't have jack squat for a immune system. So there's been all of that concern. And then my mother-in-law's husband, he's had some major health issues. I mean, they're getting older, so that's to be expected, but he's also incredibly high risk. So we've had concerns there. And then there's my mom and her husband, or my stepdad, and they're also in Colorado, a couple hours away from my mother-in-law. And they go do their shopping, they wear their mask. They follow the social distancing for the most part, as well as anybody else, I would assume. But they're living proof that the masks don't do any good. My mom came down sick, I want to say about a week and a half ago, maybe closer to 2 weeks, and it was one of those things where she called me and she told me that she'd been running a fever for a couple days. She didn't feel well and she just felt really fatigued, and I said, you probably should get tested because that's kind of a good description of COVID-19 right there. And she said, well, I don't have a bad cough. I have a little bit of a cough every once in a while. And I was like, it doesn't sound right. So a few days go by and she calls me again. She's not feeling well. She's still very fatigued, very weak. And her husband had also come down sick at this point and was very much, he's not eating, he's very weak, he's very fatigued, and he also has heart conditions and his health is not the greatest. So there's concern there. And she's saying, I can't get him to eat and he's very weak and it's a struggle. So anyway, then, was it yesterday? No, day before yesterday. Friday they called a doctor, because when you have symptoms you're supposed to call, and then they were doing an over-the-phone discussion, and the doctor said, no, you're going to have to go see someone in person. So they set up an appointment for them at a convenient care clinic. So they went to the convenient care clinic. The doctor there told her, you're recovering, but you have to get your husband to the emergency room because you're And with my mom, she was far enough along in the process of healing that they said it was actually pointless to test her, but they said her husband definitely had to be tested. So they went to the emergency room. In the emergency room, ran all the tests and everything, and my stepdad actually tested positive, which then, of course, it's obvious my mom, she's also positive, but I already had figured that. So they had a couple of options. One was to take him home, and the other was to admit him. Now, if they admitted him to the hospital, then my mom is not allowed to stay with him because he goes into quarantine, and she is expected to quarantine at home because of the fact that she's recovering. She's not in bad shape anymore. She's going to pull through just fine. So my stepdad opted to go home, so they put him on oxygen, sent him home, said he's having some issues with kidney damage. So my mom is recovering. She's weak. She's tired. She's going to be fine, but there is still concerns with my stepdad. So I guess what I wanted to say is COVID-19 is real. If you don't believe it's real, it is real. And for many people, it will just be like it is for my mom, where she doesn't feel well, but she's going to recover and be fine. And then there are others like my stepdad who may experience lasting damage caused by this pandemic. And he is not out of the woods by any means. He's still not eating. It's not easy taking care of someone who is as sick as he is, and you can't get help because of the fact that they're under quarantine for COVID-19. I mean, she called and she asked the hospital if there was someone that they could send to help her because of how sick he truly is, and she can't properly care for him at home, but they can't send anyone because they're in quarantine. They can't send anyone into their home to care for him, and she's still weak herself and not feeling well herself. So there's been a lot of worry for us on this end, and I just wish she was here so that I could help care for her and her husband, but she's not. So I just have to sit here in Illinois and pray for my mother in Colorado and hope that everything comes out okay. There's literally nothing I can do sitting all the way here, but it also doesn't do me any good to go there because they're in quarantine. So technically, I might not even be able to help even if I went. So anyway, the moral of the story, it's real. Believe it's real. It's very real. And sometimes it's going to affect your loved ones, and sometimes those loved ones you may not be able to be with them, which is sometimes more scary than being able to be there to help them. So thank you for watching my video. If you could please keep my mom and her husband, as well as my mother-in-law and her husband, in your prayers, that would be amazing. My mom's name is Inga. Her husband's name is Marty. My mother-in-law is Linda, and her husband is George. So if you could keep Linda and George and Inga and Marty in your prayers, I would forever be grateful. Thank you so much for watching. You have a wonderful day.